The small Earth scout ship Polaris drifted quietly through the black void of space. Captain Tae-Won Kim sat in the pilot's seat, his eyes moving back and forth between the view screen and the star chart on his tablet. The ship's soft beeps and hums were the only sounds in the control room. "Computer, mark our position again," Tae-Won said. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the stars outside. Even with all the ship's fancy tools, he liked to check their course the old way, by looking at the stars themselves. His grandfather had taught him how to navigate by the stars when he was just a boy on fishing trips in the Yellow Sea. Now, those same skills helped him find his way through the endless ocean of space. A red light began to flash on the control panel. At the same time, a soft alarm sounded. "Captain, we're picking up a strange energy reading," said the computer's calm voice. "It's unlike anything in our records." Tae-Won sat up straight. "Show me." A 3D map appeared in front of him. A large, unknown object was floating about 10,000 kilometers away. The computer couldn't tell what it was, but it was big. Very big. Tae-Won pressed a button on his chair. "Jisoo, Daehyun, come to the bridge now. We have something interesting." Less than a minute later, the door slid open. Jisoo Park, the ship's star navigation expert, rushed in with her hair still messy from sleep. Behind her came Dae-Hyun Choi, the engineer, pulling on his uniform jacket. "What is it, Captain?" Jisoo asked, sliding into her seat at the navigation console. "Something big," Tae-Won said, pointing to the glowing dot on the display. "And it's not moving the way it should if it were an asteroid or natural object." Dae-Hyun looked at the readings and whistled. "That's massive. Almost 2 kilometers long. And the energy signature? It has to be a ship." The three of them fell silent. Humans had been traveling in space for nearly a century, but they had never met another intelligent species. "Are we sure?" Jisoo asked quietly. Tae-Won nodded. "The computer is now 98% certain it's an artificial structure, a ship, and it seems to be drifting." "Drifting?" Daehyun asked. "You mean like it's damaged?" "Or lost," Tae-Won said. "Jisoo, can you get us closer?" Slowly, Jisoo's fingers danced across her control panel. Course plotted, moving at 1/4 power. The Polaris changed direction, its small engines pushing it gently toward the mysterious object. As they got closer, the ship's cameras began to show more detail. "My God," Daehyun whispered. On the main screen, they could now see what looked like a massive ship. It was beautiful, shaped like a huge silver leaf with glowing blue lines running along its surface. It was at least 500 times bigger than their small scout ship. "It's not from Earth," Tae-Won said unnecessarily. Nobody argued. "Captain," the computer interrupted, "we are receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel." The three humans looked at each other. "Put it through," Tae-Won said, straightening his uniform. The screen flickered and then showed what was clearly an alien face. It looked almost human, but not quite. The skin was pale blue with no hair and large, completely black eyes that seemed to take up too much of the face. When it spoke, its thin lips barely moved. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Yul-ho of the Dorvan exploration ship Eternal Light. Identify yourself." The alien spoke perfect English, which told Tae-Won that they must have been watching Earth for some time. "This is Captain Tae-Won Kim of the Earth scout vessel Polaris," he replied, keeping his voice steady despite his racing heart. "We detected your ship and came to investigate. Do you require assistance? You appear to be drifting." The alien, Commander, Yul-ho, tilted his head slightly. "Your offer is unexpected. We are experiencing a temporary navigation malfunction. Our systems were damaged by a solar flare 3 days ago. We are currently recalibrating our quantum positioning array." "How long will that take?" Tae-Won asked. "Approximately 1 Earth week," the alien replied. Jisoo couldn't hold back her surprise. "A week? To figure out where you are?" Commander Yulho's black eyes turned to her. "Our navigation systems are extremely complex. They calculate our position based on the gravitational pull of every space object within 1,000 light years. It is far more accurate than any system your species has developed." Tae-Won noticed the hint of pride, or maybe it was arrogance, in the alien's voice. Maybe we can help, he offered. We may not have technology as advanced as yours, but we do have different methods. The alien was quiet for a moment, then said, I do not see how your assistance would be useful, but our protocols suggest that we should accept help when offered. You may dock your vessel if you wish. The screen went dark. Well, that was friendly, Daehyun said with a small laugh. They're stranded and probably embarrassed, Taewon said. Jisoo, take us in slowly. Daehyun, prepare the docking equipment. The Polaris approached the massive alien ship. They could see a small opening appear in its side, a docking bay just big enough for their ship. Captain, Jisoo said quietly as they prepared to dock, what exactly are we going to do? How can we help them if their navigation system is so advanced? Taewon smiled. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. We're going to show them how humans found their way before computers existed. The Polaris slid smoothly into the docking bay of the Dorvan ship. Through the view screen they could see several aliens waiting for them, all with the same blue skin and large black eyes. Ready? Taewon asked his crew. Daehyun patted the tool bag at his side. As I'll ever be. Jisoo nodded, clutching her old-fashioned star charts, paper copies she always carried as backups. The airlock hissed as it created a seal with the alien ship. The door slid open to reveal a tall, thin alien in what appeared to be a uniform of shimmering material that changed colors as he moved. I am Lieutenant Bin-ha, the alien said with a small bow. Commander Yulho has asked me to escort you to him. As they followed Bin-ha through the alien ship, all three humans tried not to stare. The corridors were wide and tall, with glowing walls that seemed alive. The floor beneath them felt strange, like walking on water, but without getting wet. Your ship is beautiful, Jisoo said to break the silence. Bin-ha looked back at her. It is functional, he said simply. They reached what appeared to be an elevator, but with no visible controls. Bin-ha merely stood still, and the floor began to move upward. So, Daehyun said casually, you've been watching Earth? We study many developing worlds, Bin-ha replied. Your planet has been of particular interest since you split the atom. Before they could ask more questions, the elevator stopped. The doors opened to reveal a large round room filled with what had to be alien technology. In the center stood Commander Yulho. Welcome aboard the Eternal Light, he said. I must admit, I am curious about how you think you can assist us. Our navigation system is the result of over 20,000 years of technological development. Taewon stepped forward. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. We'd like to understand your problem better, and then perhaps offer a different approach. Yulho gestured to a large, complicated display showing countless glowing dots and lines. This is our current situation. Without our quantum positioning array, we cannot precisely calculate our location. The recalibration process requires us to collect new data from at least 50 major gravitational sources. As the alien spoke, Jisoo had wandered to what appeared to be a window, a rare feature on spaceships due to structural weaknesses. She looked out at the stars. Do you ever just look outside? She asked suddenly. All the aliens in the room turned to stare at her. To navigate, she explained. Do you ever just look at the stars to find your way? Yulho blinked slowly. That would appear extremely imprecise, but it works, Taewon said, moving to stand beside Jisoo. Humans have been navigating by the stars for thousands of years. It might not be as precise as your quantum array, but it could get you moving in the right direction while your systems recalibrate. The aliens looked at each other. Then Yulho spoke. An interesting suggestion, but I fail to see how. He was interrupted by a loud alarm. A Dorvan officer rushed into the room. Commander, our drift has accelerated. We are now on course to enter an asteroid field in approximately 6 hours. Yulho's calm facade cracked slightly. Can we use maneuvering thrusters to change course? Without navigation data, we risk moving further into danger, the officer replied. Taewon looked at Jisoo and Daehyun, then back to Yulho. Maybe now would be a good time to try something new, he suggested. Commander Yulho looked at the three humans standing before him. His large black eyes blinked slowly as he considered Captain Taewon's offer to help. Very well, Yulho said finally. Lieutenant Bin-ha will show you our navigation systems. Perhaps your different perspective might be useful. Bin-ha stepped forward. Please follow me. The three humans walked behind the tall alien down a wide hallway. The walls gave off a soft blue light that seemed to come from within the material itself. Your ship is huge, Daehyun said, looking around with wide eyes. How many Dorvan are on board? This vessel carries 12,000 crew members, Bin-ha replied. It is actually one of our smaller exploration ships. Jisoo almost stopped walking. Smaller? This is small to you? Bin-ha's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. Our home fleet vessels are typically 10 times this size. They reached the end of the hallway and entered a room so large it made the humans gasp. It was shaped like a dome, with a ceiling that seemed to stretch upward for at least 50 meters. In the center stood a circular platform surrounded by floating screens and control panels. Above the platform, a three-dimensional map of stars and planets spun slowly. This is our navigation hub, Bin-ha said. 5 other Dorvan worked at different stations around the room. They all looked up briefly when the humans entered, then returned to their work. It's like a cathedral, Jisoo whispered. Please explain. How your navigation system works, Taiwan said to Bin-ha. The alien stepped onto the central platform. The quantum positioning array uses the gravitational signature of stellar bodies to calculate our exact position in space, he began. Each star, planet, and even large asteroids create a unique pattern of gravitational waves. By measuring these waves from thousands of sources simultaneously, we can determine our location with perfect accuracy. As Bin-ha spoke, the 3D map above them changed to show lines connecting various stars, creating a complex web of light. When the solar flare hit us, it damaged the sensors that detect these gravitational waves. Bin-ha continued. Now we must recalibrate the entire system by collecting new baseline data. This is time-consuming. A week is more than time-consuming, Daehyun said. It's dangerous, especially if you're drifting toward asteroids. One of the other Dorvan, an older-looking alien with darker blue skin, approached them. I am Senior Navigator Do-jin. The recalibration cannot be rushed. Our system requires precise measurements, or it will be useless. His voice had an edge to it, as if he didn't appreciate the humans questioning their methods. No one is saying your system isn't impressive, Taewon said diplomatically. We're just wondering if there's a simpler solution for your immediate problem. Do-jin crossed his long arms. What simpler solution could primitives possibly offer? Jisoo had walked to the edge of the room where a narrow window looked out into space. Why don't you just look out the window? She asked again. Do-jin made a sound that might have been a laugh. Visual navigation? You suggest we navigate a spaceship by looking at stars with our eyes? We've been doing it for thousands of years, Jisoo said, turning to face him. Long before we had computers or sensors. On oceans, perhaps, Do-jin said dismissively. Not in space. The principle is the same, Taewon said. The stars are fixed points of reference. If you know which stars you're looking at, you can figure out where you are and which way you're going. The Dorvan navigators looked at each other. One of them said something in their own language, a series of musical clicks and whistles. Bin-ha turned to the humans. We have not used visual navigation in over 10,000 years. The idea seems primitive. Daehyun had been examining one of the control panels. What about your engines and thrusters? Are they still working? Yes, Bin-ha replied. We can move the ship. We simply do not know which direction is safe without our navigation systems. Suddenly an alarm sounded. A new Dorvan rushed into the navigation hub. Senior Navigator, the ship's drift has accelerated. We will reach the asteroid field in 5 hours, not 6. Do-jin's face showed worry for the first time. Continue the recalibration. Work faster. Taewon stepped forward. You don't have time to finish your recalibration before hitting those asteroids. Let us help you. Do-jin and Bin-ha exchanged looks. Finally, Bin-ha said, What do you propose, Captain Taewon? Take us to your observation deck, Taewon said. Jisoo is our best astrogation specialist. She can identify our position by looking at the star patterns. Dojin made a dismissive gesture. Our observation deck is merely ceremonial. We use it for cultural events, not navigation. Well, today it's going to help save your ship, Taewon said firmly. After a moment of silence, Bin-ha nodded. I will take you there. Dojin, please inform Commander Yulho. Dojin didn't look happy, but he nodded and walked away. Bin-ha led the three humans out of the navigation hub and into another elevator. This time they went up for what felt like several minutes. When the doors opened, they stepped into a large circular room with a transparent dome ceiling. The stars shone brilliantly above them, with no lights in the room to dim their glow. This is beautiful, Jisoo said, looking up. Perfect for what we need to do. She pulled out her paper star charts from a tube she carried across her back. Spreading them on the floor, she began to study the stars visible through the dome. Dae-hyun, can you ask if they have any manual controls for the ship's thrusters? Taewon asked. Dae-hyun nodded and spoke quietly with Bin-ha. The alien looked confused by the question, but eventually led Dae-hyun to a panel on the wall. He pressed his hand against it, and a hidden compartment opened to reveal what looked like an old-fashioned control console. These are emergency manual controls, Bin-ha explained. They have not been used I am not sure they have ever been used. More Dorvan had begun to enter the observation deck, curious about what the humans were doing. Among them was Commander Yulho, who watched silently from the doorway. Jisoo was on her knees, looking up at the stars and then down at her charts, making marks with a pencil. She took a small metal device from her pocket, a sextant, an ancient tool used by sailors on Earth to navigate by the stars. What is that primitive device? One of the Dorvan asked. It's a sextant, Jisoo explained without looking up. It measures angles between objects in the sky. Sailors used them to navigate Earth's oceans for hundreds of years. She continued working for several minutes while everyone watched in silence. Finally, she stood up and pointed to a bright star directly overhead. That's Deneb, she said. And over there is Vega. That means we're in the galactic sector near what humans call the Cygnus Arm. She looked at Taewon. I know exactly where we are. The Dorvan looked at each other in disbelief. Impossible, Dojin said. You cannot know our position with such precision using only your eyes and that toy. Jisoo smiled. I don't need to be precise down to the meter like your quantum array. I just need to know enough to avoid the asteroid field. She walked to the manual controls where Dae-hyun was standing. May I? Bin-ha nodded, and Jisoo sat down at the controls. Based on the star patterns, the asteroid field should be in that direction, she said, pointing to her right. We need to adjust our course by approximately 40 degrees to port, to the left, and we'll clear it safely. Commander Yulho stepped forward. You are certain? Yes, Jisoo said confidently. The stars don't lie. Yulho looked at Taewon, who nodded. I trust her with my life, Commander. I have many times before. After a moment of thought, Yulho made a decision. Proceed. Dojin started to protest, but Yulho held up his hand for silence. Jisoo looked at the unfamiliar controls. Dae-hyun, can you help me figure these out? Dae-hyun examined the panel. It's not too different from our own systems. This should be the thruster control, and this looks like directional guidance. Working together, the two humans slowly began to operate. The Dorvan ship's manual controls. The massive vessel shuddered slightly as thrusters that hadn't been used in centuries came to life. Through the transparent dome, they could see the stars begin to shift position as the ship changed direction. Holding steady, Jisoo said, her hands firm on the controls. We should clear the asteroid field with plenty of room to spare. The Dorvan watched in amazement as their enormous ship moved according to the directions of a human, using nothing but her eyes and simple tools to navigate. Remarkable, Bin-ha whispered. Commander Yulho stepped closer to Taewon. Your navigator uses no computers? No sensors? Taewon smiled. Sometimes the old ways are the most reliable. When everything else fails, we can always look to the stars to guide us home. As the massive ship slowly turned away from danger, guided by human hands and ancient knowledge, a new respect began to grow in the eyes of the watching aliens. The observation deck of the Dorvan ship was now crowded with blue-skinned aliens. Word had spread quickly through the massive vessel that humans were steering their ship using only the stars. Many had come to see this strange sight for themselves. Jisoo remained at the manual controls, her eyes moving between the starfield visible through the dome and the course she had plotted on her paper charts. Daehyun stood beside her, helping to translate her navigation decisions into the proper inputs for the alien control panel. Adjusting course by 3 degrees, Jisoo said calmly. The edge of the asteroid field is becoming visible. Through the transparent dome, they could now see tiny points of light reflecting the distant sun, hundreds of asteroids floating in space. Commander Yulho stepped closer, his black eyes fixed on the approaching field of space rocks. How close will we come? To the asteroids? We'll pass about 20,000 kilometers from the nearest large one, Jisoo replied without looking up from her work. More than enough safe distance. Senior Navigator Do-jin had been watching silently from the side of the room. He finally approached Taewon. Your navigator's methods are unexpected. How can she be so certain without computational assistance? Taewon smiled. Humans navigated Earth's oceans for thousands of years before we had computers. We learned to read the stars like a map. Jisoo is especially gifted at it. But space is three-dimensional, Do-jin argued. Much more complex than an ocean. The principles are the same, Taewon said. The stars are fixed points. If you know which stars you're looking at and their patterns, you can figure out where you are and which way to go. Do-jin seemed unconvinced, but he continued to watch with interest as Jisoo guided the massive ship. After about an hour, the asteroid field was clearly visible through the dome. Hundreds of rocks ranging from car-sized to some as large as mountains floated in the blackness of space. The Dorvan ship was now moving parallel to the field, safely clear of any danger. We've successfully changed course, Jisoo announced. We're no longer on a collision path with the asteroids. A murmur of relief went through the gathered Dorvan. Commander Yulho nodded his appreciation. Impressive, he said. But where are we heading now? Jisoo pointed to a bright star visible through the dome. That's Altair. If we continue on this heading, we'll reach a clear area of space where you can safely continue your recalibration process without drifting into anything dangerous. You can determine all of this just by looking at the stars? Asked a young Dorvan officer at the back of the room. Yes, Jisoo said. She motioned for the young alien to come closer. Would you like me to show you how? The young officer looked to Yulho for permission. When the commander nodded, the officer stepped forward eagerly. My name is Han Jin, the young Dorvan said. I am a junior navigation officer. Jisoo smiled and pointed to her star charts spread out on the floor. The first step is to identify key stars, ones that are bright and easy to recognize. We call them navigation stars on Earth. As Jisoo began explaining basic stellar navigation to Han Jin, more Dorvan gathered around to listen. What had started as skepticism was quickly turning into curiosity. Meanwhile, Daehyun had struck up a conversation with Bin-ha about the ship's engines. Your thruster systems are amazing, Daehyun said. The response time is almost instant even for a ship this size. The thrusters use quantum entanglement to eliminate lag between command and action, Bin-ha explained. Fascinating, Daehyun said. But I noticed something when we accessed the manual controls. There's no backup system for your navigation, is there? If the main system fails, you have no alternative. Bin-ha blinked slowly. We have not needed one. The quantum positioning array has been reliable for thousands of years. Until now, Daehyun pointed out gently. Bin-ha was quiet for a moment. You make a valid observation. Across the room, Taewon was speaking with Commander Yulho. Your people seem quite interested in our navigation methods, Taewon said, nodding toward the group gathered around Jisoo. It is an approach we had not considered, Yulho admitted. The Dorvan have relied on technology for so long that we have forgotten some of the more basic skills. Technology is wonderful until it fails, Taewon said. That's why on Earth ships we still train navigators in traditional methods. Computers can break, stars don't. Yulho considered this. A wise precaution. Perhaps we have become too dependent on our advanced systems. Over the next few hours, the humans and Dorvan continued to work together. Jisoo had created an impromptu class on stellar navigation, with a dozen Dorvan officers sitting around her as she explained how to identify star patterns and use them to determine position and direction. These 3 stars form what humans call the summer triangle, she explained, pointing up through the dome. They're visible from many parts of our galaxy and make an excellent reference point. Han Jin and the other Dorvan listened with growing interest, asking questions and taking notes in their own language. Dae-hyun had moved to a different control panel with Bin Ha and a few Dorvan engineers. They were discussing how to create a simple backup navigation system that could work even if the main quantum array failed again. You could install basic optical telescopes connected to a simple computer system, Dae-hyun suggested. It wouldn't be as precise as your quantum array, but it would be enough to avoid hitting things while you repair the main system. The Dorvan engineers looked skeptical at first, but as Dae-hyun explained the concept further, they began to see its value. Sometimes simpler is better, Dae-hyun said, especially for emergency systems. As the day progressed, the atmosphere on the observation deck changed. What had started as humans teaching aliens had evolved into a true exchange of ideas. The Dorvan began explaining more about their quantum navigation systems to the humans, while the humans shared their knowledge of traditional navigation methods. Your quantum positioning array is incredible, Jisoo said to Do-jin after he had explained more about how it worked. The precision is far beyond anything we have on Earth. Do-jin seemed pleased by her appreciation. Yes, but as we have seen, today, it has vulnerabilities that your methods do not. By the end of the ship's day cycle, the massive Dorvan vessel had reached the clear area of space that Jisoo had identified. Here, they could safely continue the recalibration of their navigation systems without risk of collision. Commander Yulho called Taewon, Jisoo, and Dae-hyun to a small meeting room adjacent to the observation deck. Several senior Dorvan officers were also present. Captain Taewon, Yulho began formally, your crew has provided invaluable assistance to us today. You have not only helped us avoid a dangerous situation, but have also shared knowledge that we had forgotten. Taewon nodded respectfully. We're glad we could help. That's what space exploration should be about. Different species helping each other and sharing knowledge. Indeed, Yulho agreed. Our Council of Elders has always taught that true wisdom comes from many sources, not just our own advancements. He looked at Jisoo. Your navigation skills would be considered extraordinary even among the Dorvan. Jisoo smiled, a little embarrassed by the praise. It's just something many human navigators learn. Looking to the stars is part of our history and culture. Perhaps it should become part of ours again, Yulho said thoughtfully. Senior Navigator Do-jin has proposed that we establish a training program in visual navigation techniques for our officers. Do-jin, who had been so skeptical at first, now stood straighter. The recalibration of our quantum array will still take several more days. In that time, we would be honored if you would continue to share your knowledge with our navigation team, the Rikyo. 3 humans exchanged surprised looks. We would be happy to, Taewon said. And perhaps your engineers could tell us more about your quantum entanglement systems. There's much we could learn from each other. Yulho made a gesture that seemed to be the Dorvan equivalent of a smile. As you humans say, this could be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. As the meeting concluded, Han Jin approached Jisoo. Will you teach me more about the stars tomorrow? The young Dorvan asked eagerly. Of course, Jisoo replied. We'll start with how to use a sextant. Looking around at the Dorvan officers now talking excitedly with his crew, Taewon felt a sense of pride. In just one day, human ingenuity and ancient knowledge had not only saved a ship, but had also begun to bridge the gap between 2 very different species. Sometimes, he thought, the simplest solutions were indeed the best ones. 3 days had passed since the humans had helped the Dorvan avoid the asteroid field. The observation deck, once rarely used, had become the busiest place on the massive alien ship. Small groups of Dorvan officers gathered around Jisoo et al. Hours, learning the basics of stellar navigation. Remember, Jisoo said to a group of 15 Dorvan, the key is to find your reference stars first. Once you know where those are, you can work out everything else. The young officer Han Jin held up a metal sextant that Daehyun had made in the Dorvan workshop. Like this? He asked, measuring the angle between two bright stars. Perfect, Jisoo said with a smile. You're a natural at this. Across the deck, Taewon stood with Commander Yulho, watching the training session. Your navigator has quite a gift for teaching, Yulho observed. Our officers have learned more in 3 days than I would have thought possible. Jisoo loves the stars, Taewon said. Her grandmother was a sailing ship captain on Earth who taught her to navigate when she was just a child. When technology failed, her grandmother's skills saved many lives. Yulho tilted his head. You humans place great value on preserving old knowledge alongside new discoveries. We've learned the hard way that forgetting the basics can be dangerous, Taewon replied. New isn't always better. Sometimes it's just different. The commander nodded thoughtfully. A wise perspective. Meanwhile, in the ship's engineering section, Daehyun was working with a team of Dorvan engineers. They had spent the last 3 days designing a backup navigation system that combined Dorvan technology with human principles. If we install these optical sensors here, and here, Daehyun said, pointing to a 3D model of the ship, you'll have a 360-degree view of the stars around you. The computer can be programmed to recognize star patterns just like a human navigator would. The chief Dorvan engineer, Taemin, studied the design. The system is elegant in its simplicity, he admitted. It would use only a fraction of the power needed for the quantum array. And it can't be knocked out by a solar flare, Daehyun added. The basic cameras and computer would keep working even if your main systems fail. Taemin made some adjustments to the design. We could enhance the optical capabilities with some of our quantum processing. It would give us better accuracy while maintaining the simplicity of the design. Daehyun grinned. That's exactly what I was hoping for, the best of both worlds. As the humans and Dorvan worked together, they began to learn more about each other's cultures. During meal breaks, they gathered in a large dining hall where the humans tried Dorvan food, which tasted surprisingly like mint and berries, and the Dorvan sampled the emergency rations from the Polaris, which they found fascinating but bland. Tell us about Earth, Han Jin asked during one such meal. Is it true that most of your planet is covered in water? About 70% of our surface is oceans, Jisoo confirmed. That's why navigation by stars became so important to us. When sailors were far from land, the stars were their only guides. Our homeworld has very little open water, Han Jin explained. Mostly small lakes and narrow seas. Perhaps that's why we never developed the same traditions of stellar navigation. Du Jin, who had joined them for the meal, spoke up. I've been studying your star charts, Jisoo. Human astronomical knowledge is impressive for your level of technology. Coming from Do Jin, who had been the most skeptical of the Dorvan officers, this was high praise. Thanks, Jisoo said. We've been watching the stars for thousands of years, long before we had spaceships or even telescopes. It makes me wonder what other knowledge we Dorvan have lost in our pursuit of technological advancement, Do Jin said quietly. The conversation turned to the differences between human and Dorvan ships. Your vessel is incredibly advanced, Daehyun said, but I've noticed something interesting. You've designed systems that completely replace basic functions rather than enhance them. What do you mean? Asked Taemin. Well, take navigation, Daehyun explained. Instead of using technology to enhance your ability to navigate by stars, which is reliable and doesn't require much power, you created a completely new and complex system that replaced it entirely. Taemin considered this. We have always valued innovation over tradition, new over old. On Earth, our best technology usually builds on what came before, Dae-hyun said. We add layers of advancement without discarding the foundations. Later that evening, Taiwan was summoned to a meeting with Commander Yulho and several high-ranking Dorvan officers. When he arrived at the commander's quarters, he found a heated discussion already in progress. Is everything okay? Taiwan asked as he entered. Yulho gestured for him to sit. We are debating a proposal from Senior Navigator Do-jin. He suggests implementing your human navigation methods as a permanent backup system on all Dorvan vessels. That sounds reasonable to me, Taiwan said. What's the debate? A stern-looking Dorvan officer whom Taiwan hadn't met before spoke up. I am Science Director Giho. Some of us believe this proposal would be a step backward for Dorvan technology. Our ships have used quantum positioning for 20,000 years. Returning to visual navigation seems primitive. With respect, Taiwan said carefully. Is it primitive to have a backup plan? If your main navigation fails again, which it did, wouldn't you want another way to find your path? The quantum array almost never fails, Giho insisted. Almost. Never is not the same as never, Do-jin countered. If the humans had not arrived when they did, our ship would have drifted into that asteroid field. 12,000 lives would have been at risk. The room fell silent as the Dorvan officers considered this fact. Finally, Yulho spoke. Captain Taiwan, what would happen on a human vessel if all your navigation technology failed? We would do exactly what Jisoo did here, Taiwan replied. We'd look at the stars, use basic tools, and find our way home. All human ship captains and navigators are trained in these methods, even on our most advanced vessels. Technology can fail, Taiwan continued, but the stars are always there. His simple statement seemed to have a strong effect on the Dorvan officers. They looked at each other and several nodded slowly. Perhaps, Yulho said, we have been too quick to discard old methods in our rush to embrace new technology. There is wisdom in maintaining multiple approaches to solving problems. Giho still looked unconvinced, but he didn't argue further. After the meeting, Taiwan walked with Do-jin back toward the observation deck. Thank you for supporting the idea, Do-jin said. Not all of my people see the value in what you humans have taught us. Change is hard, Taiwan replied, especially for a species that's been doing things the same way for thousands of years. Indeed, but sometimes it takes an outsider's perspective to show us what we've been missing. Do-jin paused. You know, when you first came aboard, I thought you were primitive. Now I see that your approach is simply different, and there is value in that difference. When they reached the observation deck, they found Jisoo still teaching a small group of Dorvan officers. They were plotting a simple course using only the stars visible through the dome and basic calculations done by hand. They've been at it for hours, Do-jin said with something like pride in his voice. They're eager to learn. Knowledge is never wasted, Taiwan said. Even if they never need to use these skills, understanding them gives a deeper appreciation for the stars they travel among. As they watched the humans and Dorvan working together under the light of countless stars, Taiwan felt a sense of accomplishment. What had started as a simple rescue had become something more important, a bridge between two very different approaches to the same universe. The Dorvan's quantum array would be fully recalibrated soon, and the humans would return to their own ship and continue their journey. But something had changed between these two species, a mutual respect and understanding that would last far beyond this brief encounter. Sometimes the oldest knowledge was the most valuable, and sometimes it took new friends to help you remember what you had forgotten. The seventh day dawned on the Dorvan ship Eternal Light. In the main navigation hub, the quantum positioning array was finally completing its recalibration process. Screens lit up with detailed star maps and complex calculations as the system came back online. Recalibration complete, announced one of the Dorvan technicians. Quantum positioning is functioning at full capacity. Commander Yulho nodded with satisfaction. Excellent. Begin system diagnostics and verify our position. The navigation officers worked quickly at their stations. Senior Navigator Do-jin studied the results with a critical eye. Position verified, he reported. We are exactly where Jisoo said we would be. There was a hint of surprise in his voice, even though he had come to respect the human's skills. Yulho turned to Tae-won, who stood nearby watching the proceedings. Your navigator's calculations were accurate to within 0.002% of our quantum readings. Most impressive for methods you call basic. Tae-won smiled. Jisoo would be pleased to hear that, though she'd probably just say the stars don't lie. Indeed, they do not. Yulho agreed. He gestured for Tae-won to follow him. Walk with me, Captain. There are matters we should discuss before your departure. The two walked through the wide corridors of the Dorvan ship. Crew members they passed nodded respectfully to both of them, a sign of how quickly the humans had been accepted among the Dorvan. The Council of Elders has reviewed the reports I sent about our encounter, Yulho said as they walked. They were most interested in what we have learned from you and your crew. I hope that's a good thing, Tae-won replied. Very good, Yulho assured him. The Council has authorized a new training program for all Dorvan ships. Visual navigation will now be a required skill for all navigation officers. Tae-won raised his eyebrows. That's a big change for your people. Yes, Yulho admitted, but a necessary one. Your human wisdom has shown us a blind spot in our approach. We became so focused on advancing our technology that we forgot the value of simpler methods. They reached the observation deck, which had been transformed over the past week. Star charts now hung on the walls, and several navigation stations had been set up around the room. A group of Dorvan officers were gathered around Jisoo, who was demonstrating how to use a compass alongside star sightings. One last class before we leave? Tae-won asked. She insisted. Yulho said with what Tae-won had learned was a Dorvan smile, a slight tilt of the head combined with a softening around the eyes. Your navigator has become quite popular among my officers. They watched as Jisoo finished her demonstration. The Dorvan officers applauded in their own way, by tapping their fingers against their palms. Thank you all for being such eager students, Jisoo said. Remember, the stars are constant friends. They've guided travelers for countless generations, and they'll continue to do so long after we're gone. Young Han-jin stepped forward and presented Jisoo with a small box. A token of our appreciation, he said. From all of us. Jisoo opened the box to find a beautiful star crystal, a rare Dorvan artifact that captured starlight and held it inside. The crystal glowed with a soft, shifting light that mimicked the patterns of real stars. It's beautiful, Jisoo said, genuinely touched. Thank you. It will always show the pattern of stars as seen from this moment and place, Han-jin explained, so you will remember your time with us. Across the ship in the engineering section, Dae-hyun was helping the Dorvan engineers install the last components of the new backup navigation system. The hybrid design combined Dorvan optical technology with human navigation principles. That should do it, Dae-hyun said, closing the access panel. Want to run a test? Chief Engineer Taemin nodded and entered a command into a nearby console. The new system came online, showing a simplified but clear map of the surrounding stars. Perfect, Taemin said, examining the readings. The system is functioning at 98.7% efficiency. Not bad for a primitive backup, Dae-hyun said with a grin. Taemin's expression grew serious. You know, Dae-hyun, when your ship first arrived, many of us thought we had nothing to learn from humans. We were wrong. That's the great thing. About the universe, Dae-hyun replied. There's always something new to learn, often from unexpected places. Taemin handed Dae-hyun a small data crystal. This contains technical specifications for some of our simpler systems. A gift from the Dorvan to Earth. Perhaps your people will find it useful. Dae-hyun's eyes widened. Technology sharing was a significant step for first contact between species. Thank you. This is incredibly generous. No more than what you have shared with us, Taemin replied. Later that day, all three humans gathered with the Dorvan leadership in the ship's grand meeting hall. The room was filled with Dorvan officers and crew members who had worked with the humans during the past week. Commander Yulho stood at the center of the room. 1 week ago, our ship was adrift. our navigation systems damaged, and our path uncertain. Today we are not only back on course but enriched by new knowledge and new friends. He turned to face Taewon, Jisoo, and Daehyun. On behalf of the Dorvan people, I thank you for your assistance and your wisdom. You have reminded us of an important truth, that advancement does not always mean abandoning the old ways, but sometimes incorporating them into the new. Yulho presented Taiwan with a Dorvan star crystal similar to the one Jisoo had received, but larger and more elaborate. This crystal is normally given only to those who have made great contributions to Dorvan society. You and your crew have earned this honor. Taewon accepted the crystal with a small bow. Thank you, Commander. We came seeking new discoveries in space, but the greatest discovery has been finding friends among the stars. As the ceremony concluded, a young Dorvan officer approached Yulho and spoke quietly to him. The commander turned to Taewon with surprise. It seems you have inspired more than just new navigation methods, Yulho said. Several of my junior officers have requested permission to temporarily join your crew. They wish to learn more about human ways and to share Dorvan knowledge with Earth. Taewon looked surprised. That's a big step for first contact. Indeed, Yulho agreed. But perhaps a necessary one. Our two species have much to learn from each other. Han-jin stepped forward from the group of volunteers. I would be honored to join your crew, Captain Taewon, if you will have me. Taewon looked at Jisoo and Daehyun, who both nodded encouragingly. We would be happy to have you aboard, Taewon said. The Polaris isn't as luxurious as your ship, but there's always room for those who want to explore and learn. As the humans prepared to return to their small scout ship, many Dorvan came to say goodbye. The farewell took nearly an hour as officers and crew members expressed their gratitude and good wishes. Finally, the three humans and Han-jin, along with two other Dorvan volunteers, walked through the docking tube back to the Polaris. It's going to be a bit cramped, Taewon warned as the Dorvan entered the small human vessel. Han-jin looked around with interest at the compact but functional interior of the scout ship. It is cozy, he said diplomatically, but it has windows to see the stars. That makes it perfect. As the Polaris disconnected from the massive Dorvan ship, Jisoo took her place at the navigation console. With practiced ease, she plotted their course using both the ship's computers and her own knowledge of the star patterns outside. Course set for the Tau Ceti system, she reported. We should arrive in 3 days. Taewon nodded. Engage engines. Standard power. The small ship moved away from the eternal light, which now glowed with all its systems fully operational again. Captain, Han-jin said, looking out the view screen at his home ship. I have a question. What is it? When humans look at the stars, what do you see? Just navigation points or something more? Taewon smiled. Both. The stars guide us home, but they also remind us of how vast and beautiful the universe is. They remind us that there's always more to explore and discover. Han-jin nodded thoughtfully. I have much to learn from humans. And we have much to learn from the Dorvan, Taewon replied. That's what makes space exploration worthwhile. Not just finding new planets, but finding new friends and new perspectives. The Polaris turned toward open space, its small frame carrying representatives of two civilizations. Behind them, the massive Dorvan ship sent a signal, a farewell and a promise of future meetings. Ahead of them lay endless stars, shining like beacons in the darkness. And somewhere among those stars, other species waited to be discovered, each with their own wisdom to share. The journey had just begun.